Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this YouTube video describing the Arps Sentry Toolkit for eSignal. This is part 2 in a two-part video series, and in this video I hope to show you the exciting new tools we've created for eSignal. They are specifically for the greatly improved Watchlist application, and I'm looking forward to showing these tools to you. Just as a quick review, for those of you that are jumping to this video before watching the previous video, which was part 1 of the Arps Sentry Toolkit for eSignal, I will review a little bit of what we looked at. We created a set of tools for the eSignal watchlist. You see here an eSignal watchlist with a list of symbols on it. And our tools are looking for signals that are generated by some of our proprietary indicators, and many of these indicators identify trading signals, trading setups, or trading orientation indications. And we're going to talk about each of these tools individually, but first I want to show you generally how they appear on the eSignal watch list. I have applied here a tool called TTB Trend Exhaustion 1, and this is looking for signals that are generated by our Trend Exhaustion 1 crown jewels indicator. And what it plots is 3 columns. The first column shows you how many bars ago a signal occurred, and the second column shows you how much the price has changed since the occurrence of that signal. This is a percent change of price since the signal. And the third column, which is called warning, alerts you to symbols that are setting up for a signal, but the signal has not yet fired. Now, the cells with the green background indicate bullish signals, and the cells with the red background indicate bearish signals, and all of our warning signals are plotted with a yellow background, and if they're bullish they have green text, and bearish have red text. You can sort on the bars ago column to find the most recent occurrences of these signals, or you can sort on the percent change column as shown earlier in the previous video, and you can see how effective your input parameter settings are by monitoring whether most of your percent changes are positive or negative. Or you can sort on the warning column and identify all the symbols on your watch list that are setting up but have not yet fired for these particular signals. As noted earlier, all these watch list tools can be synchronized with a chart by simply clicking on the link button here on the upper left of the watch list. The left side button links symbol to a chart, and the right button links the time frame to a chart. So you can see I have blue and red links here, and blue and red links synchronized on my chart. Now I can click on any symbol and I get the chart for that symbol. In this case it has the Trend Exhaustion 1 indicator already applied to the chart. You can see we got an oversold buy signal right here, an overbought sell signal right here. Another interesting note is most of these Arps Crown Jewels tools, you can easily access the parameters for the tool by clicking on the little button here on the left, and it will bring up the parameters for the tools. Well, let's talk about some of the other specific tools that we have in the Arps Sentry Toolkit. Let's take a look at the Arps Triple Trinder. It's based on the Arps Trinder algorithm, which is a sophisticated calculation which is meant to follow price pretty closely, and when the price crosses the Trinder flips to the other side of the price. Now the idea is to confirm the short-term trend, the medium-term trend, and the long-term trend by applying the Trinder on 3 different time frames basically, and when they're all synchronized in the same direction, we have a confirmed identification of the trend direction. And you only trade as long as all 3 trenders are oriented in the same direction towards the trend. You would exit your trade when the short-term trender gets crossed by the price, and re-enter your trade when all three are in alignment again. So, how can we identify these trade setups from the watch list, from a long list of symbols? Here you can see that I've applied the Arps TTB triple trender to the watch list, and you see a lot of colors and numbers. I will explain those to you here. Basically, we are looking at the number of bars ago that each of the three trenders of the triple trender flipped from long to short or short to long. So the numbers in the first column, which is short, tells you how many bars ago the short-term trender flipped. And in the second column, we can see how much price has changed since the flip of the short-term trender. The third column shows you how many bars ago the medium-term trender flipped, followed by a column which shows you how much the price has changed since the medium-term trender flipped. The next column shows you how many bars ago the long-term trender flipped, and that is followed by another column which shows you how much the price has changed since that long-term trender flip. And then there's another column called score, and I will tell you here in a minute how we calculate the score. But before I do, I have to explain to you why there are 4 different colors in the different columns. As I mentioned earlier, the red cells indicate a bearish signal, and the dark green cells indicate a bullish signal. Well, what about these light green cells or these magenta cells? Well, if we go back to our chart, we can see that sometimes the trender, especially the long-term trender, may go sideways instead of following the price. And so when the trender is going sideways, this is an orientation of a weaker trend. It's not a moving trend, it's a sideways trend. And quite often you'll see the short-term trender or the medium-term trender get broken while the long-term trender is going sideways. So when any trender is moving sideways, if it's a bullish trender, we plot that count as a light green, and if it's a bearish trender, we plot it as a magenta color. Now, the count doesn't start over when the price goes sideways. It's still counting from the time that the trender flipped. But when the trender is going sideways, the background color of the cell will change from dark green to light green or deep red to magenta. We use these indications to help us calculate the score. If the trender is trending strongly downward, it plots a red background, and so we can give this a score of -2. If it's trending strongly upward, we give it a score of +2. If it's weakly trending but it's bullish, and that's the light green color here, then that would give a score of 1, or weakly bearish, which is a sideways bearish trend, would be -1. So what we do is we sum the scores for the 3 trenders to get a score for each symbol, and that way we can see which symbols are most strongly trending bullishly or bearishly or otherwise. We can sort on the score, and now we can see on this list of symbols we have quite a few very strong bearish symbols with a -6 calculation. That's -2 plus -2 plus -2. We have just a couple of symbols with a strong bullish indication, +6, and a few symbols in between ranging from -5 to +5. Now you may be wondering what some of these different colors mean on the score column or in the long-term trender column. You see there are yellow ones and white ones, and over here you will see some blue ones and with the green and the dark green. We have made it even easier to identify the symbols which have most recently changed. And so if a trender score has changed, we will plot the score with this pink color if it's changed down on the most recent bar, or if it's changed up on the most recent bar, it will plot in a green color. I don't think we have any of those on this particular watch list. Nothing was moving up today. Now, if on the most recent bar all three trenders became synchronized, bullish or bearish, then the background of the score cell will be plotted white. So you can see all these -6s with a white background show us symbols who on the most recent bar became synchronized in a bearish trend. Now sometimes they become synchronized after a pullback in the trend, and sometimes it's the beginning of the trend. And the way we identify the difference is if the long-term trender flips later than the short-term trender, then we consider that the beginning of the trend, because the first trender to flip will of course be the one closest to the price, which is the short-term trender. So if the long-term trender is less than the short-term trender, then we identify this as early stages of trend identification. We plot the long-term trender bar changes in yellow, or if it's a bullish trend, they'll plot in this aqua blue color. You can see the long-term trender is less than the short-term trender. We can confirm that with our chart. If we look at this, we can see we went to AMX, and you can see that this short-term trender flipped right there earlier than the long-term trender, which was right here, and gives us an early identification of this bullish move right here. Here's another tool which uses the Arps Trinder to find some good trading signals, and that is our Trinder Pullback tool. And very quickly, it's looking for opportunities where the price pulls back into the trender but doesn't close across the trender. You can see an example of that here on this chart of CVD, where it happened twice. The price pulled back across this trender, and we got a trender pullback signal dot 2 bars in a row just before the price continued on in the orientation of the trend. Well, we've created a watchlist tool to help identify these trading setups. We call it our TTB, Trinder Pullback tool. And once again, we can sort on the bars ago column and find the most recent occurrences of this setup. And we can see what the percent change has been since that happened. We can then find indications of that signal. Here's a nice bullish one, a nice bearish one, a bearish one that didn't pan out. But the rule is you put your stop just above the high or low of the bar which gave the signal, and so it's a very low risk entry opportunity. Another one of the tools which we've created for the eSignal watch list, based on a common technical analysis pattern which many people recognize, the flags pattern, which looks for pullbacks in a trend and then identifies a profit target once the flag has broken out. Now, one of the nice things about flag patterns is that it's a measured move tool. You don't have to wonder when to expect to get out. Usually you can count on a flag reaching its target, which is the length of the bottom of the flagpole to the top of the flagpole added to the bottom of the flag. So you can see once this flag pattern broke out on this dot here, it plotted the target, and it never closed above the target here, and then but it did reach that target. Then it identified a bear flag and is now approaching the bear flag target. You can see that the bear flag target started plotting as soon as the breakout occurred right there. And we've given you all this information in the watch list. You can see on my watch list I have applied the Arps TTB flags tool, and it shows 4 different columns. The first column shows you how many bars ago a breakout of the flag pattern occurred. The second price tells you the breakout price of the flag pattern. The third column tells you the target price of the flag pattern, and the fourth column tells you the percent to target that price has achieved once it has broken out of the flag pattern. Now you can see again we have different colored plots to help you easily see what's setting up and what's not. If a flag pattern is setting up but has not broken out yet, for instance what you see in PG or WLT, then that will be identified by this pink or light green. Pink identifies a bear flag, light green bullish. Once the price has broken out of its congestion, if it's a bear flag pattern, the watch list cells will change color to red, and the TTB flags indicator will start to plot the percent progress to the target. It'll plot green here if the flag is bullish. So you can see, for instance, here is a bear flag, theoretically, that is just about ready to break out. It needs to close across this price right there. It looks like on today's bar it may do that, but this bar hasn't closed yet, so we don't see a breakout yet on that one. Perhaps we can see one that broke out on the most recent bar. You can see SLW identified this bear flag here and broke down at 28.02, and it should now be plotting a target. Here it is, somewhere around 1863. Here's one of my favorite new scan Sentry tools, and that is the Pullback 23. This uses some proprietary calculations to look for pullbacks within a trend and plots a signal dot on the bar where it identifies the completion of the pullback. You can see on this chart we got some Pullback 23 signals, a downward signal here on that bar right there, a downward signal on this bar right here, an upward pullback signal on that bar there, an upward signal on that bar, and an upward pullback signal on this bar. This is one of my favorite setups. It uses the Arps Radar 2 price leader and the Radar 3 trend strength index, which both can be found in your crown jewels folder. You can see here on the watch list we have applied the TTB Pullback 23 indicator here, and it's showing you how many bars ago one of these signals occurred and what the percent change has been since the signal. And then this warning signal here tells you when they're setting up. You can sort on the warning and find symbols that are setting up, and you can see these setup signals on the chart. They're the little cross on a bar before the signal will happen. That's the setup warning signal. You can see this one gave a warning signal. It didn't actually get a Pullback 23 signal there for some reason, but just before each one of these signals you see that little cross. That's a warning signal. We can look at this one here and see that we got a warning signal for a pullback right here, but apparently the pullback happened before the signal could fire. Look at a couple other here at random. You can see we're getting a pullback warning signal here. So one of my favorite tools. Of course, you can, like always, sort on bars ago and find the most recent occurrence. Alright, I'd like to talk a little bit now about our trend exhaustion tools, which are included in the Arps Scan Sentry Toolkit for the eSignal watch list. We have 3 of them, and we'll start with Trend Exhaustion 1, which I showed you a little bit earlier in this video and in the previous video. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about that now. Trend Exhaustion 1 is based on signals which are generated by our Radar 2 price leader acceleration oscillator, which is this oscillator you see here on the bottom of the chart. And one of the cool things about the Radar 2 price leader, the improvements we've made into it this year, is that we've added these dynamic overbought and oversold lines. It basically looks at the nature of the market and creates overbought, oversold zones that are influenced by the nature of the market that it's looking at. So you can see as the market gets more volatile, these overbought, oversold lines are a little further apart. As it's less volatile and just grinding up the rally up there, you can see the overbought and oversold lines get closer together. The signal dots you see generated on this chart are generated by the Trend Exhaustion 1 tool, and they're generated by a cross of the fast over the slow line while it's in the overbought or oversold zone. Or if it doesn't cross in that zone, at least a cross out of the overbought or oversold zone. So you can see here this signal is generated from a cross out of the overbought zone there, cross out of the oversold zone. Here's a fast, slow cross in the oversold zone. Here's a cross out of the overbought zone. So it creates some pretty nice signals generated by the Radar 2 price leader acceleration oscillator. Like our other TTB tools, you can see that this Trend Exhaustion 1 tool will plot bars ago, and it will plot the percent change since the signal, and it gives you a warning. These warnings are generated, for instance, if it identifies the fast line is in the overbought or oversold zone and it's approaching the slow line, it'll give you a warning that the setup is about to fire. Now, one of the other cool ways that we use this tool is the way that we use Radar 2 in general. And that is not only to find trading opportunities like these overbought, oversold signals, but once you're in a trade, I generally use the Radar 2 as my timing indicator to get me in or out of the trade. And so you can adjust the settings of the Trend Exhaustion 1 tool so that it is, rather than using the overbought oversold cross, it just uses a fast slow cross to generate the signals. And you can see we get a lot more signals that way every time the fast line crosses the slow line. And we can format our Trend Exhaustion 1 TTB tool to do the same thing. And here you see it's going to give us a lot more signals as it calculates the trend exhaustion signals on this list of stocks that I have on my eSignal watch list. Looks like everything's decelerating, or at least most of them are. The next tool I want to show you is our Trend Exhaustion 2 tool. It looks for specific price patterns which are indicative of impending end of a trend, and it plots these signal dots when it finds these price patterns. You can see here's a signal dot there, a bearish one, and a bullish one here. It also, as it's identifying the preliminary stages of the trend exhaustion, it plots these little warning dots, these little crosses, so that you can be alerted to the fact that a Trend Exhaustion 2 signal is beginning to set up. We have, of course, created the corresponding Watchlist tool, and we call that TTB, Trend Exhaustion 2. And as you're looking at your list of symbols, it will identify those symbols which have fired a Trend Exhaustion 2 signal, and then it'll keep track of how those signals have done. And it can even alert you to which signals are setting up. That way you not only have to trade the signal, but you can get some early warning that these signals are setting up. I have one more trend exhaustion tool that I'm really excited to show you, and this is our Trend Exhaustion 3. It is actually based on certain oscillator patterns which indicate that a trend is coming to an end. In the eSignal watch list, it's called TTB, Trend Exhaustion 3. In the Crown Jewels package, you'll find signal dots under the name Trend Exhaustion 3. You can see from this chart here that I have that it shows pretty good signals at the end of each trend. It doesn't catch necessarily the beginning right there, but good warnings for the end of the trend. And as you can see from the watch list, it doesn't necessarily generate a lot of signals, but the ones it generates are generally pretty good. It also includes warning dots, which you can see on this chart here. You don't see them, any of them generating here on our watch list. Let's see what this looks like. You can see we got a warning dot just before this signal here. You can see we got a nice trend exhaustion signal for AIG here. Well, I told you I have a lot of exciting tools to show you for the eSignal watch list. I've shown you 7 of them now. if you apply them all to the same watch list at the same time, then you begin to get a clear picture of the most tradable setups for every one of your symbols on your watch list. You can see what setups are developing, what setups have fired. Using the triple trender, you can quickly and easily see how strong a trend is in a bullish or bearish direction. You can quickly and easily see flag breakout patterns, trender pullback patterns, Pullback 23 signals, as well as a plethora of trend exhaustion signals. So there's quite a lot you can do, and there's a lot more that I haven't been able to show you that these tools can do. But I just wanted to give you an introduction to them. This is what they look like all on the spreadsheet at once. I want to thank you for taking your precious time to learn a little bit about these new tools for eSignal. I hope you got something useful from it. We at Jan Arps Traders Toolbox wish you success in your trading, as well as in all the important aspects of your life.